Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. I am the assistant head of the Jiu-Jitsu program here at WNY MMA. In this video, we will be covering a few topics, including an introduction to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, hygiene rules, sparring rules, safety rules, and usage of the gym. So thank you for joining us. This won't take too long. So what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art and combat sport based on ground fighting and submission holds. Jiu-Jitsu focuses on the skill of taking the opponent to the ground, controlling one's opponent, gaining a dominant position, and using a number of techniques to force them into submission via joint locks or chokeholds. Using the principles of leverage, angles, pressure, and timing, a small person can defend themselves against a larger person. The art's history can be traced back to the Japanese samurai warrior class. It greatly evolved in the early 20th century, where its philosophy and technique was refined from Kodokan Judo in Brazil, where it began to emphasize groundwork. It is now an art practiced all over the world, where it continues to grow and evolve. The 3 levels of learning. Learning Jiu-Jitsu generally involves 3 phases. The first is the exposure to a technique. This is when an instructor will demonstrate and explain the intricacies and details of a certain technique or sequence. After that, you'll pair off for non-resistance training. This is practicing a technique with a non-resistant partner to gain confidence and muscle memory of the move. And after that, we have full resistance training. This is sparring, also known as rolling, against a partner, and here you're actively trying out the techniques and trying to gain positional supremacy or just complete a certain technique you're working on. Alright, so now let's go over some Jiu-Jitsu positional hierarchy. In basic Jiu-Jitsu theory, there is a number of positions that you will commonly see. Some positions are better than others. Now the list of positions can get much more extensive than this, but just for beginner's sake, we're just going to go over the general common positions. Alright, starting with some of the top positions you want to be in. It's generally considered back control, is when you have your chest connected to your partner's back and you have hooks in, meaning your feet are inside your opponent's thigh, or you might have a triangle around the body. This is considered advantageous because you have access to your opponent's neck, arm bars, and other attacks, while your opponent is mostly purely defensive. Another very dominant position is the mount. That is when you are sitting on your opponent and he does not have his legs or hips in front of you. Again, this offers attacks to the neck, arm bars, shoulder locks, and a whole extensive array of submission options. If you watch any MMA, you'll know that this is a position that a lot of fights end in. Side control offers some similar control. That is when we are perpendicular in a chest-to-chest position against our partner. Again, his legs and hips are not in front of you, so he cannot use his legs to attack you. And we also have a wider range of submission options here, and a lot of ways we can transition to the mount or to the back from side control. Now let's talk some neutral positions. So the guard is any time the person on bottom is lying on their back and they have their legs and hips in front of the person in the top position. Now, due to the fact that the person on bottom has his legs and hips in front of the person on top, this offers a wider range of submissions that the person can set up. He can break the person on top's posture. He can off-balance them. The guard player can also look for things like sweeps. The sweeps are any time you flip your training partner over to their back and you gain a top position. You can also look for back takes. Something like an arm drag allows you to go from a guard position to getting a great position such as back control on your partner. So in this guard position, the person on top has to be careful. The person on top is generally going to look to pass the guard, or sometimes the submission options or back takes will also appear. So both people on top and bottom have options here. The most basic form of the guard is the closed or full guard. That is when the person on bottom wraps his legs around the person on top's torso. From here, the person on top generally wants to maintain posture and find a means to open the guard before he can start passing it to get to a dominant position. Half guard is another common position you'll see. That is when the person on bottom has 2 of his legs wrapped against one of his training partner's legs. Now there's going to be some fundamental concepts that both people in this situation want to keep in mind so they can continue progressing to a better position or to prevent the other person from attacking them. Now, if the person on top gets around the person's legs and hips, they'll end up in a dominant position. So if you get your guard passed, you might end up in something called side control, mounts, or have your back taken. So if you're stuck on side control on bottom, your hips and legs are no longer in front of your training partner, so you cannot create space as easily as you would be from the guard. So you're going to have to rely on things like frames, using your legs and pressing them against the floor to off balance your training partner, and your whole mission is just to defend, keep your arms in tight, protect your neck, and find a way to get back your guard or to a standing position, or find some kind of reversal to get back on top. Same thing if your partner has mounted you. Now he's sitting on you. Again, no legs, no hips in front of your training partner. You have to protect your neck. You want to keep your arms in tight. You want to use something called hip escapes to create separation, or you can use upas, aka bridges, to off balance your training partner. Finally, we have one of the worst positions to be in jiu-jitsu, and that is having somebody else take your back. So someone will have their chest connected to your back. You won't be facing them, and the main concern here is chokes. So you want to keep a tight chin, you want to hand fight, you may want to bridge into your partner to keep them flat and keep them uncomfortable. And throughout your progression, you're going to learn a few ways to escape this position and hopefully get back to a neutral or even dominant position and prevent them from setting up attacks. So in closing, I'll leave you with a list of terminology. Feel free to come back to this another time, but that will do it for part 1, and we'll see you at part 2.